we should be live now. You may have
or in like 10 seconds.
Fine, 10 seconds, yep. We should have a countdown on screen. It's so nice, Dennis, when we start our live stream on Sundays, because there's the pre-service countdown, so we can actually see very easily like how behind we are.
Nice. Sarah, Brian's gonna be calling in though, hey? Like Brian's gonna be joining this.
Yeah, I think how I've got it positioned, it should just fill, like, I think it will just be 2 by 2.
Okay, so it'll automatically bump Dennis over?
Yeah, like how Zoom does. And I think I've got the bottom thirds. Dennis, you've got the live stream up?
I do. I'm not seeing anything yet.
Try refreshing, or potentially go back to the South Langley page. Dave, I'm assuming your thumbs up, Dave, was that you have it live?
Yeah.
Okay. I haven't actually got it up live. I've just got it up on the stream page. But Dennis, so the other thing is we have lower thirds on our screen, so that you can, people can see our questions, and we'll sometimes refer to things that are on screen.
So Sarah, when you say that we're live, what do we mean by that?
That we are broadcasting on YouTube, and
okay.
I think we are. Oh, I guess I'll clap. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, 4 Mississippi, 5 Mississippi, 6 Mississippi, 7 8 seconds. We've got an 8-second delay today. So
that's a respectable delay.
Like I see the chat, but I don't see us on the screen. Oh well.
Scroll up.
Well, I've got the chat on the side bar.
What do you see on the screen?
Just the you know what? I wonder, oh, hang on. I must be on the wrong one. I'm probably just on some old live stream. Oh yeah, here we go. Okay.
Okay, you got it?
Well, I'll be there in a sec, yep.
Okay.
Oh, yep, there I am.
Okay.
So last week we missed, did you post on social media?
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I posted yesterday, and then I posted again. I put it in our stories a couple minutes ago.
The pre-show. We're on the pre-show time. Oh, we got a chat. Oh, what did you post this for? Oh, that's the link. You posted a link. Did you post a link to the live stream?
Yeah, for Dennis. Gotcha. Hey, so we got 8 people. Hello. Who do we have?
Let us know if you can hear us. I think I heard. Wait.
Everyone say hi in the chat.
Nobody's been talking, so I can't monitor. Good morning. Oh, good morning, Josh. I was about to say, good morning, Dennis. Oh, wait. Good morning, Dennis. Good morning, Rita.
What are you guys drinking?
I haven't been able to. I'm gonna step away for a moment and see if I can rescue my blender. Oh, good morning, Alicia. Good morning, Alicia. We have somebody else who's joining us today, Alicia, for you to ask the big questions to. Dennis, Alicia often asks us big questions. So
Alicia's in my home group, so we're very comfortable with all sorts of good questions.
Awesome.
She tried to get us to talk about ontology.
Ontology.
And I was so ready. And she wasn't here.
Maybe we should have Alicia on as a guest one time and talk about ontology.
You definitely should.
What
do you think, Alicia?
When you first posed the idea of having guests, I thought that's who you were gonna like jump to right away. Anyways, I am gonna go grab my drink here. So hold down the fort, you guys.
We'll hold down the fort. Dennis, what do you have? Coffee?
Yeah, just coffee.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I have some strawberry banana bread, which is outrageous good. It's
I'll tell you a funny story about this coffee. So as we sort of saw that things were going to get shut down, Val was like, make sure we have enough coffee, right? It's
Right.
like one of the essentials. So I grabbed some hazelnut flavored coffee beans from Costco one time. And Val was like, oh, no, not those. We don't like, and now she's like, oh, do we have more of that? Right. So just goes to show you. So today's coffee is actually a blend of that hazelnut plus some of the other stuff I picked up, and we grind the beans, and yeah.
Oh, you're custom blending. Look at
Yeah,
you.
not by any sort of design. I'm not like a coffee snob or anything like that, but
Right.
you're a coffee snob of a sort, are you not, Dave?
Am I?
Sorry,
Should I be insulted?
That might be a sort of pejorative term, but you care about coffee.
I love a good coffee. There's a lot of things that I like. I enjoy the good version of it, but I don't enjoy it to the point where it becomes work. Do you get what I'm saying? Like,
sure.
I love to go to a good coffee shop and get like a really well done espresso drink, or like I love really like even like really good cheese. That
Sorry,
and
reading the comments that Alicia's asking. Sorry.
How much sugar? How much sugar do you put in?
An adequate amount.
Okay. Seems evasive.
It is rather evasive. Let's just put it this way: Val likes some coffee with her sugar, and I'm kind of close to that, but not quite that bad.
Oh dear. So yeah, but I can't. I don't have time to be one of these people who like is researching stuff. So like Brian Penner, who'll be on later, like I think he's got like a coffee subscription, and he'll like he knows like the tasting notes of his coffee and that stuff, and I'm like, good for you. I don't have time. Yeah. All I want is the enjoyment.
I have a friend from university who started his own coffee engineering company. Like he was an compressed gas engineer, and then eventually and he was a hobbyist for coffee stuff. And eventually he quit his job and started his own company as doing like engineering type approaches for people that do coffee stuff. And he now has a successful company, and that's his full-time job. He has employees, and yeah, it's pretty cool.
So he's hi Sarah, your dad was asking about you.
Hi, Dad.
So Dennis, he's Gail Bedecker from Breaking Bad. Do you remember that guy?
I haven't watched that show in a long, long time, so you might need to refresh my memory.
Oh, I thought you were going to join the ranks of have never watched Breaking Bad, Dennis.
No.
That's me.
Should we not talk about this?
Hello, Steven, and hello, Carolyn. Dave, here's my drink that I've been telling you about for...
Oh.
It's, today I did an added splash of lemon juice. But Dennis, this is our first coffee time. We were talking about like favorite drinks or something, and this is my favorite drink. It's 2 frozen grapefruits with some of the pith intentionally left on. I chunk it up, freeze it, throw it in a blender, and that's what I drink.
Wow, that's impressive.
I gotta go warm up my coffee. It's cold.
Oh, okay.
I'll be right back.
I was reminded yesterday. No, go ahead, Dave. I was reminded yesterday of why I love this drink, and it is because it is so. I think the word is bitter, that it wakes you up, and I can't do caffeine. My body cannot handle caffeine. Triggers like crazy anxiety in me, or I think it's actually that. What caffeine causes feels like anxiety for me. And so this is instead of having caffeine, I just drink 2 grapefruits.
That's interesting.
But it works for me. It wakes me up.
How's the grapefruit supply at the store these days?
I don't know. I'll be honest, John does our grocery shopping. And when we get low on grapefruit, he brings more. I don't know I don't know how the process works. I don't know how much he is paying for said grapefruits. I just know that we almost always have grapefruits in the house because I do really enjoy them, which is funny. As Dave mentioned, my dad's in the chat, and I grew up like hate grapefruits. And just one day I made the decision. I was like, nope, I'm gonna like these, and I just forced myself to eat a grapefruit every day until I started enjoying them.
Wow.
So I missed what you were drinking today.
Oh, just coffee. I was joking about how it's this mix of different beans that I managed to grab at Costco in the weeks before the shutdown, right? So
yeah. Nice.
Sarah, do you have one of those special grapefruit spoons with like serrations on the side to like cut up?
I eat my grapefruit. Like I think part of my because I didn't normally eat grapefruit, I don't know how. I didn't realize that you're supposed to eat grapefruit with a spoon. I just eat grapefruit like oranges.
So yeah, that's what I do too.
So. Okay, thank you. So often I'll do that, and people are like looking at me like I'm crazy. But Stephen agrees with me. Thank you, Stephen. Grapefruits are nectar from God. I'm a fairly recent convert too. Like my decision to enjoy grapefruit only occurred like 3 years ago. It was after we moved over to the mainland. So.
You're from the island then, sir?
Yes, I'm from the island.
Okay.
Born and raised in Victoria. Moved here. Oh, I mean, it's actually probably been four years now.
Where did you live in Victoria? I lived there for a couple of years too.
Oh yes. I think I knew that. We lived in Gordon Head.
Oh, okay.
So pretty close to the university.
Mm-hmm.
If you know where, I guess I can disclose the location now because none of my family live there anymore. If you know where Gordon Head Middle School or Elementary School, that's we live just up the hill from there.
Okay. Yep. Yeah. I lived there when I was a teenager for a couple of years.
Okay.
And we lived in Saanich, sort of just off the highway, the Pat Bay Highway.
Okay. Yep.
And I went to Pacific Christian, which was right on like Mackenzie Highway.
Yeah. So many like the church that I grew up going to was kind of like the PCS church.
Oh, which church did you go to when you were there?
Lambrick.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So Lambrick, that's where I started in. Oh, can we say that on stream? Did you see the same comment that I did, Dave?
I did.
That's very exciting, Alicia.
Hooray.
Good. If you're in the right home group, you get these tidbits even before.
Oh, wow. You had the tidbit beforehand.
That's pretty cool. All right.
Do you know what's really been kind of interesting about doing Zoom meetings for home group is that we've had people like Stephen, for example, who's in Edmonton right now. These are former members of our home group who have moved away, but now they're coming to home group again because it's as accessible to them as it is to anyone else. So it's been pretty cool, actually.
Yeah, my family has been we do semi-regular games nights, and it's gathering a group of people. My most of my family is on the island, but scattered across the island. And then my uncle is downtown Vancouver, and so like my niece and nephew, they live in a small town, Ladysmith, on the island, but they've been really enjoying like having regular interaction with their aunts and uncles, and like grandparents have been able to participate as well. So I actually haven't seen some of my family members as regularly ever before. So it's been, there's been cool moments. Who's our special guest today?
Connor was gonna make an appearance.
Oh, no, and then we made too big of a deal of it.
No, I think he forgot something. I think he's got show and tell for us.
Love it.
He's running.
Sarah, seeing as we're talking about your family, I've always wanted to ask you, are you related to Ian Provan at Regent, or is that?
Nope.
Nope. Okay.
At least Not as far as I know, and not as far as 23andMe tells me. I've got no family in the area. But there's a few. There's actually a teacher in Victoria who taught, I think, at Mount Doug for a while, and regularly we're asked, "Oh, hello, Connor." My dad says no relation.
Hey, buddy.
Hello, Connor.
What are you here to talk about, Connor?
Nothing.
Oh, you just wanted to say hi?
No.
Connor, I'm not here to talk about anything either.
You'll fit right in.
I'm just here to drink my grapefruit.
So what have you guys been doing downstairs?
Our school.
Don't touch the mouse.
Schoolwork. What have you been doing for school today?
Worksheets.
Connor. What kind of worksheets?
I like filling out things.
Were you like learning about dinosaurs?
You were counting something. What were you counting when you were learning about shapes?
I was counting, I don't know. Vertices.
Whoa.
Remember vertices? We had forgotten.
Oh.
Auntie Carly says, hi, Connor. Say hi, Auntie Carly.
Hi.
A lot of people say hi to you, Connor. Carolyn says hi. Carolyn loves your hat. Wait, is that a cat with sunglasses on?
Yep.
That is
And then
the coolest.
say underneath.
Underneath it is duty.
It says dude.
Hashtag dude. Oh, and Jelly Bean says hi to Connor.
Jelly Bean. Say hi, Jelly Bean.
Hi, Jelly Bean.
Jelly Bean is Connor's cousin. And Carolyn, please don't give him ideas.
Carolyn, I could totally hook him up because I was like the mad scientist kid when I was a kid too. So.
Connor, do you like doing science experiments?
Yeah.
Did you get any science experiments for Christmas? What was that box of science experiments called?
Brain science.
Brain science. Yeah. What was your favorite experiment that we did?
The rainbow tube.
The rainbow tube. Oh yeah, that was cool.
What was that? Can you tell us about that?
Well, we had different liquids and we mixed in, I think we mixed salt into water. It was all salt water, I think.
Yeah,
Was it salt?
We got warm water. I think we put salt in, then tabs colored it, and then we put our thumb on the top of the tube, stuck it in, and then as soon as we lifted out our thumb, we move our thumb and then put it back down and into the next color and up when we put it out, and then the last color.
So we made a layer of like a tube with layers of colored water, right?
Yeah.
And the layers stayed separate.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
And
Sarah, apparently your volume is too low.
Mm.
Apparently Dennis and I are good, but you're
My
quiet.
volume is too low. Okay, good to know.
What were you going to say, Connor?
nothing.
Okay. Yeah, that was a good experiment. We made oobleck.
We made oobleck too.
Oobleck. You know, I made something like oobleck yesterday. Similar ingredients, but I've never made it before, and it's called Mundo. Mundo, and it's cornstarch and hair conditioner. And
Yep.
Hair conditioner.
Hair conditioner, like shampoo.
Like shampoo. But that was a lot of fun, and we actually, with my friend who is learning about solids and liquids and gases, we talked about whether oobleck is a solid or a liquid, and whether Mundo is a solid or liquid, and she did some tests to figure out, and she decided that oobleck is more of a liquid, but Mundo is more of a solid. That was a fun day. We had fun yesterday.
And the cool thing is about the oobleck is sometimes if we don't play with it enough, it gets hard, and it's probably hard right now because we haven't been playing with it very much.
We still have it.
Yeah, we still have it.
Because we didn't clean it up.
Yeah.
Oh, I know all about that.
It's probably hard right now because we haven't been playing with it, and we can fix it super easily. We just have to put more water in and then stir it.
Mm-hmm.
That's all we need to do.
So Connor, this right here, this guy up top, this is my friend Dennis. And did you know he's a scientist?
Yeah.
Oh, you knew that? Okay.
Mama told me down.
Oh, Mama told you? Is Mama watching this on the TV downstairs?
No.
Okay. Is she watching this downstairs?
No.
But she told you that we were talking to a scientist?
I don't know anymore.
Okay. Anyways, that's pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
So, like, he studies biology. So that's like, you know, your book with all the animals in it?
Yeah.
Like, that's biology. Pretty
Wait.
cool, right?
You mean dinosaurs?
I don't study dinosaurs, but I do teach about dinosaurs a little bit in some of my classes. Yeah.
Oh.
Dinosaurs
cool.
are pretty cool.
Do you like learning about dinosaurs, Connor?
Not like.
Okay, awesome. Apparently, Dennis has a lab that you should visit sometime.
Oh.
Would that be cool? Would you like to go to a lab sometime?
Uh-huh.
A lab. Wow.
Hey, Brian, we're making all kinds of promises here.
Oh, look, Connor's got a icebreaker, and now that Brian's here, should we move on to our icebreaker?
First, we should introduce ourselves.
Thank you.
If it could be a holiday, what would you
Celebrate.
celebrate?
Good reading, bud.
Yeah, that was awesome. That's the question.
We totally did that one already.
I was gonna say that was the question we did last week. But Dave, why don't you start off and just introduce what we're doing today, and I'll cycle through some of the slides.
Okay, Connor, pick one from the middle and get ready to read it. Okay, from the middle. Okay, not that one.
Do not pick from the middle.
Pick from the middle. Hi everyone. Welcome to Virtual Coffee Time. I'm Dave, and who else do we have here?
I don't know.
This is my son Connor.
I'm Sarah. I'm the director of children's ministry at South Langley Church.
Brian, go.
Am I next?
Go ahead, Brian.
Nope, Dennis.
Is this where we go back and forth like we're on the national or something like that? I'm Dennis. I'm just somebody who attends South Langley Church.
Nice. Just somebody.
Just somebody.
The most published of everybody in this. I'm Brian, and I'm one of the youth guys at South Langley Church.
Good stuff.
For the 17 people that we know that are watching. And
hey, there could be other people.
Yeah, people watch it back sometimes.
Right.
Okay. So this is our virtual coffee time where we just gather to hang out and have a bit of a chat.
And how can people interact?
And why I'm glad you asked, Sarah. And so that's you, bud. And so we'd love for you to interact in the chat here on YouTube. You can also text us. Sarah, if you can throw that number on screen. That is the number now. And Connor, you got to stay calm, okay? And that's it, right? Oh, well, and we'd love to post a picture.
Yeah, totally.
And use hashtag South Langley Church. Don't, Connor. And yeah, we're just gonna hang out for about an hour and chat and whatever. And so we're gonna start as we always do with an icebreaker. And Connor has already picked our card. And are you good to read it?
Yeah.
So we'll the four of us will answer, and you can answer in the comments or in the chat as well, or text in your answers. Okay, go ahead and read, Connor. Here's our icebreaker.
Did you meet your magnificent others?
Your significant other?
Or magnificent others.
You. High five.
That was awesome.
Awesome.
That's what I'm going to call John from now on. My magnificent other.
Yeah.
I love it.
I mean, I suppose some people don't meet magnificent others, but hopefully that's true for everyone.
Hey, do you want to stay here or do you want to go downstairs with Mama? You want to stay here? Okay, then you can't touch my computer. That's the deal. All right?
I want to see myself move.
You're right here.
No.
Oh, okay. We can do that as long as you stay calm, okay? Okay.
So,
Yeah, that's good.
So Dave, how did you meet your magnificent other?
Oh man, she is magnificent. We met on worship team. And so I had been on worship team for a while at South Langley Church playing drums. And she had just what?
You fell for a drummer.
Yeah, she totally did. Okay.
I'm going to get my drumsticks.
Oh, awesome.
Anyways, she got added to our worship team. And so I was like 20 and she was 18. So she had just graduated and then she got asked to be on our worship team. And we started hanging out on worship team and we did a really good, like, not dating before we were dating.
Nice.
You know what I'm saying? Like we were hanging out before we were dating. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yes.
And everyone knew what was going on.
Right. What does that look like, Dave?
What does it look like?
Yeah.
It looks like I took her to a couple of plays, actually.
Oh, okay.
Because back then I was really sophisticated.
Wow. And that's just hanging out? Because that's what you do with all your friends, right?
To a couple of plays, right? Just casually. Anyways, and then I took her we had a young adults Christmas banquet, and she was not like my date, but we went together. Anyways, and
you hadn't yet had to define the relationship.
I was gonna say, it sounds like you guys are just delayed on having the DTR.
That's right. So
this is my drumstick, and it actually uses batteries. And one of them makes music, but I don't know where it is. There's two of them.
This one, isn't this the music one?
No.
Turn it on and show them how it makes a sound.
It makes 3 different sounds.
Hit my hand. Hit my hand with it. Yeah? Okay. Isn't that great?
Whoa.
You can just go around the house and just hit everything.
And have it be
and makes a noise and lights up.
Wow.
And it makes different sounds. If I push this button right here, it makes a different one. Hand.
Connor,
Whoa.
This one's similar. This one makes different sounds when I press different buttons too.
Is that a guitar?
It's a guitar.
Yeah, but it's the same because it makes different sounds when you press these buttons. This one just doesn't light up.
That's what you need. That's what you need next, Brian. A light up guitar.
It just lights you up, Brian, is what it does.
Aww.
So if Grandma and Grandpa are watching, we'd like to thank you very much for
these ones light up though.
I was gonna ask, was that a grandparent gift or a friend without kids gift?
They were like, hey, here, why don't you take this and it can live at your house and you can enjoy that for months and years to come.
Connor, our friend Carolyn says that your drumsticks are cooler than Brian's guitar.
Probably true.
All right, someone else do a significant other. Okay, turn it up.
Oh. Well, John, so my husband John and I met, we actually met on a phone app. And it was kind of for those who are internet savvy. Sorry?
It wasn't Tinder, was it?
It wasn't Tinder. It was kind of similar, Brian, to chat roulette. So it just connected you with somebody like randomly on the internet, like who also had the chat open. So I always say that my life could have been very different because before talking to John, I was talking to a guy from Australia. So, things could have ended up differently. But when you're talking to people from all over the world, it's just like people who have the app open. The first thing you say is like, "Oh, where are you from?" And as I was talking to people, nobody knows where Victoria is. And so I was just telling people that I was from Vancouver because everyone knows where Vancouver is. And so then John's like, oh, well, I'm from Vancouver too. It's like, oh, well, in that case, I'm actually from Victoria because you'll know where that is. He's like, oh, I'm actually not from Vancouver either. I'm from Aldergrove. And I was like, I don't know where. Never heard of Aldergrove before in my life. Anyway, so we chatted through that app for a few weeks and eventually exchanged phone numbers. And it turns out that he actually grew up kind of semi-regularly going to CLA. And I had a conference coming up, a children's ministry conference coming up at CLA. And so we met up. Actually, no. And then before that, I had a birthday party. It was one of my nephew's birthday parties over here in Surrey, and he was turning 1. And John willingly showed up at a birthday party with my whole family, like grandparents, aunts and uncles, cousins, everyone, and showed up. And we had our first date after that birthday party. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's legit.
We were for our wedding. We were one of the first, like all of our wedding vendors. We were the first like phone app couple that our wedding vendors had worked with. So much more popular now. But
Hunter, leave that, please.
yeah, he was very brave, Carolyn. I still don't know how he did that.
It's a screwdriver for glasses. Can you go downstairs? Oh gosh.
What about you, Dennis?
Val and I met at InterVarsity at UBC. I was at UBC for a long time. I did both my undergrad and my PhD there. Mm-hmm. And Val did her undergrads in Alberta at the U of A, but then she came to the Vancouver area and she took some courses at UBC to do to get a teaching as ESL certificate. So she came to the InterVarsity group, and the way we actually got to know each other was I was doing a daily prayer meeting with one of my friends, and Val said, I'm looking for people to pray with, and they're like, oh, talk to Dennis and Joel. They pray in the morning every day. And so, yeah, it was just sort of the first couple of weeks that I got to know Val. It was just every morning praying with her and another friend, and then just sort of grew from there.
Awesome. Gotta love InterVarsity.
Yeah.
Gotta love prayer.
Yeah. Dear Lord, please bring me a spouse. It wasn't like that.
Cindy wants to know what we're talking about.
What are we going to talk about?
Right now, we're just talking about how we met our magnificent others.
And then actually, we should say this now, guys. Is we're going to.
Sorry, I'm just laughing at Steven because I'm taking notes for the future. There you go. Go, Steven. Prayer meetings, it's where it's at, man.
We're going to
give me a good laugh there.
In a little bit, we're going to just give an opportunity to ask Dennis any questions that you have, because Dennis, as part of his role as a professor at Trinity Western University, he teaches virology and immunology. That's right?
Yep. Although I don't actually teach virology anymore. I did for many years, but I've recently handed that off to another prof.
Okay.
But I still teach immunology.
Okay. So if you guys have questions, you can drop them in the chat or text them in. If you don't, that's okay too. But we can have little discussions, as virology and immunology are a big deal right now.
Did you transfer the course through droplets, or was it through the air?
Oh, Brian.
I was an infectious teacher, Brian, and just
Cindy, Cindy, I was waving at Rosie. Dave's kids often come and join us, and so you can't help but wave at the baby when the baby's on screen.
Rosie comes in 4 times a day. At the beginning and end of every nap. I don't know, it's become part of our routine that she comes in, and very often I'm on Zoom doing something, but she always comes and says hi.
Because her room is right across the hall from me, and I don't hate it.
Yep, we don't either. Gwen says that her and her husband met at Alpha. They're at the same small group, so.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Alpha and InterVarsity bringing people together.
Cool. What else? Who else have we got in the chat?
Steven's just taking notes for future. Steven, join Alpha, join InterVarsity, get involved. What about you, Brian? Or did we? How did you meet your magnificent other?
My magnificent other. This is this is news for everyone. I'll just keep it brief. I recently started dating someone who's excellent. The process was.
Is she magnificent?
She's magnificent. She's pretty magnificent. The process was she had posted a podcast on her Instagram story, and it was a podcast about what was it? It was like why feminism will fail you, and it was like very clearly targeted to like women in their like mid-20s to like mid-40s maybe. Like I was not the target audience, but I was like, this is the thread that I have. So
this is what I have to work with.
Yeah. So I listened to it. It was actually really good. It was a good podcast. But definitely not the target audience. And I like engaged with it a little bit, and I just like slid into the DMs, and it went well.
Brian, what does it mean to slide into DMs?
It's like when you send a message and you're hopeful, but you're a little bit at the mercy of whether they reply or not.
It's right. DMs is direct messages on social media.
Right.
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah. And things are going quite well now. So we've been dating for a few weeks officially, but yeah.
Well, good for you.
What is dating like amid COVID-19?
Yeah, so we did the FaceTime thing for a little while. We went on a lot of walks, little ways apart. We've started seeing each other in person now, taking my life into my hands. But it's been good. We're pretty distant from other people, so I don't know, just reintegrating things a little bit at a time. So, yeah.
Okay. We got Ingrid saying that she and James met through young adults. Which young adults?
Dave's like, was it a good young adults?
Anyways, that's cool. Yeah, young adults is good. Justine and I definitely spent a lot of time together at young adults.
Oh, good news, Dennis. Val has the same story.
We did not discuss this beforehand. Dave, is this like when you like isolate the two suspects and you get the story from each of them?
Yeah, great. Oh, Peace Mennonite, cool. Larry and Kim met at linguistics school. Our eyes met above a crowded registration room. Oh my goodness, Kim, that's
above.
That's pretty funny. I think everyone who's in the chat knows, but Kim and Larry are both above average height.
Quite tall.
That's I was with my friends. This is not a dating story, but I was with my friends at the Richmond Night Market a couple years ago, and like we were with a bunch of friends that were like a little bit shorter, but one of my buddies was like quite tall as well. And from across the market, we were like looking for them, and I just turned around and I was like, "Oh, Josh is over there." And then all our friends were like, "What? How'd you know?" And I could see him over like 500 people. It was just like I could just see him at the end of the row or whatever. But it's convenient sometimes.
Yeah.
I definitely use that trick to locate John sometimes.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, John stands out.
Yeah.
Must be nice.
Dave. Meanwhile, Dave, what viewers at home don't know is that we regularly on Sunday mornings have conversations about forced perspective from stage.
we use forced perspective, guys, on our Sunday live stream so that the camera can pan like they did when they were filming The Hobbit. Or no, filming Lord of the Rings. The Hobbit's in Lord of the Rings. We put Adam further back so that our heads are on the same plane. Yeah. But it's just so that we fit in the camera.
Yeah, literally. I will share my dad's how my parents met. They went to the same high school in Victoria, and my mom got in trouble in English class, and her teacher wanted to call my mom's mom to get her in trouble, and so my dad took that opportunity to write down her phone number as my mom was reciting it to the teacher. So.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Cool. So we got a few more here. We had Rich and Heidi had some non-dates, and they did a +1 to a wedding as just friends. That's great. That's great.
Again, just a delayed DTR.
Sometimes you gotta just feel it out. And it's also like, I don't know, I'm at a point now where it feels embarrassing thinking back at, you know what I mean? Like, it was so long ago now. And like the things that you do when you're young and in love are just kind of, you cringe later on. You're like, but whatever.
Oh, I like Hilda's. Hilda says, I met Ed when we were going to when going with my friend to Black Creek Island for her cousin's wedding. Ed sang a solo at his sister's wedding. I was impressed. Next week, we were at Bible school together. That's a good way to make an impression. Sing a solo at a wedding.
And now they're singing together, right?
Yes.
They were on our Sunday service. So good job, guys. Hey, why don't we move on? That was some good ice breaking, guys. So why don't we talk a bit about viruses? So if we had one question already, if you guys have more questions, but yeah, Dennis, like you're someone who from early on in this before this pandemic was a pandemic, you had your eyeballs on it, and so it's with you having experience about and education about how these things work. I would love to just pick your brain a little bit.
I will say before you go on too far, like this will not be our whole coffee time, right, Dave?
Correct.
Like we have some other questions. I should hope not. So like we'll ask some questions, but then we will proceed to our usual other discussion questions. So if you have a question, ask it now.
Yeah, we got one from Cindy. I've got one maybe to start off. Like Dennis, in terms of just framing this current pandemic in our brains, like what is sort of the nearest historical example, and maybe what are some takeaways that we can have from that? What are some similarities, some differences, some lessons?
Yeah, I mean, the main reason why it's a pandemic and not just like sort of like seasonal flu or something like that is because it's a new virus that hasn't ever been transmitted from human to human before. It means that nobody has experienced it before and nobody has immunity to it. Nobody's ever had the disease such that they develop antibodies, which means that they can't receive it again. So that's what makes it a pandemic, the fact that we just do not have herd immunity out there. The closest historical parallel, of course, would be the 1918 influenza pandemic. And we saw that kind of went in 3 waves. And there's right now, epidemiologists are kind of looking at where we're at, and we're kind of in the first wave, and asking the question, it's, are we likely to have second and third waves? And I think the chance of that is pretty good. We know, like, this actually gets to the question that Cindy asked in the chat as well about antibody screening. So one way you can find out if somebody's experienced the disease, even if they didn't have symptoms, or if they had milder symptoms and they don't know, did I have COVID or did I have something else? One way you can do that is you can test for that is you can look to see if they have antibodies circulating in their blood that specifically stick onto COVID. So what we're starting to be able to do right now is to screen people in the community. They can just send in a small blood sample, and then somebody in a lab can take that blood sample and see if it contains antibodies that react against COVID. And we're starting to get the first studies coming in that sort of ask that question: how many people in a certain area have antibodies, how many people have had COVID and maybe didn't know. The ranges are kind of all over the place right now because we're just getting the first samples, the first studies. But the studies I've seen have range up to a high of maybe 30% of people in one small area. Mm-hmm. That was a study where some scientists basically just stood on a street corner for like a couple days, and anybody that walked by, they said, would you be willing to submit a sample? And when they tested in that one specific area, they found about 30% of people had antibodies, but that's on the very high end of the range. Most of the studies that we've seen so far are kind of down in the 2 to 5%-ish range for people that have antibodies. So what that means is that there's a huge number of people out there who still have not encountered this virus, which is what gives us the potential to have other sort of waves of this spread through the population. So once we have the ability to do much more widespread testing, we might be able to identify people, okay, you've had the condition, you've had the disease, you've got antibodies for it, you are safer to go back to work than, say, somebody who hasn't. So once that capability comes in, we might see public health measures where, if people have already had it, that they're permitted to be back to work in ways that maybe other people shouldn't be. But it's pretty early on right now. Although BC apparently has announced now that they're willing to test anyone who has symptoms. And that shows that we've kind of flattened the curve enough that we have the resources to be able to do that. We were at a point in the curve for a while where we didn't have the ability to test everybody, and we also didn't have the ability to contact trace everybody who was infected to find out where they got it from. I think we're getting back to a point where we'll be able to do that more effectively again because the cases are fewer, and that's very good news. It means that maybe going forward in the coming months, we might have the ability to sort of in a limited way and in a thoughtful way reopen things. But we're still at that point. I mean, like, what is it? Like, it's April. This only really became a thing in North America, maybe like late February. So that's light speed for science to be able to try to address those kind of questions.
Right. So Carolyn's got this question here. Do we know that we will develop immunity? Do all viruses produce immunity?
Very, very good question. And we do not yet know whether somebody who has already been exposed to COVID-19, if they will have decent protection from that exposure. That's one of the questions that scientists are very interested in finding out. These kind of studies are hard to do because it's not like you can do a controlled set where you take a bunch of people that have already had it and say, okay, now we're going to deliberately expose you to this virus again. Like, the ethics of that just don't work. So scientists have to do studies in a way that's ethical, and you're often looking for sort of natural experiments that have happened, like people, but to try to find those people that have had that, it's pretty early for us to be able to have a large enough data set to have any kind of confidence on that front. But yeah, that's definitely one of the big things. Some viruses produce very strong immune responses that can last for a lifetime. Other viruses, you have not as strong an immune response, and you might only be protected for like a year or so, something like that. And we just don't know where COVID-19 fits on that spectrum yet, unfortunately.
So what fuels the, like going back to the influenza epidemic, like what fuels the wave like pattern? Is that just like it gets under control, but then people get out into society again and then it spikes up again? Or
yeah, it's a good question. There are different hypotheses about what fueled the different waves. Sometimes it's because the virus, like the second or the third wave, might be fueled by a virus that's genetically a little bit different from the first one. Part of what happens when a virus starts spreading in a human population is that it has selective pressures that are put on it, and that can select for variants of the virus because it's being challenged with passaging through different individuals. Now, the good news is that over time, over a really long time scale, there's actually selection on a virus to become less pathogenic usually. But that plays out over a very, very long time scale, and that's not going to be relevant in a short-term pandemic. So that's one thought, is that maybe there's going to be those different waves in the Spanish flu. Maybe that was because there were different variants that were present.
Yeah.
Part of it is also sort of seasonality and contact and whatnot. It also has to do with how comfortable people are with interacting. Like, one of the things that we had back then was there was a much poorer ability to spread information. People didn't really know necessarily what was going on. Nowadays, we're like globally connected, so we have the ability to have that communication, and for scientists to have their findings spread around quite quickly. So, but because it's a developing situation and because it's all happening right now, it's often challenging for public health officials to make those sort of best guesses about how things are going to go. So yeah, they do have expertise. We have learned from previous things, but there are variables about this virus that we just don't know and probably won't know for a bit. And that makes it harder to make these sort of judgment calls. So you'll see them sort of erring on the side of caution, I think, at least a bit here in Canada. And I think that that's the right move. We also have the ability to kind of look worldwide and see other places that are not being as cautious. And we can see what kind of the results that they're experiencing. So Sweden is one example of that. Certain areas in the United States are definitely going to be an example of that as well. So, yeah.
So how about Ingrid's question here? What do you know about the sense of smell tests? How lack of the sense of smell might indicate COVID infection?
That's sort of something that's come up anecdotally, that people report that that's one of their symptoms. I haven't yet seen anything as to like what is going on there, what causes that. But yes, definitely, if people have that particular symptom, then yes, they should definitely be tested for sure. Yeah. But what's actually going on there, I do not know. And I don't think we've had the resources yet for people to sort of investigate that. Yeah. The main effort right now, of course, is to try to get a vaccine out there. And I know that there's something like upwards of 60 different vaccines that are starting, that are either in development and I actually saw just the other day that there's a group out of Oxford that is actually doing starting a clinical trial for a COVID-19 vaccine. This was actually a group that was working on MERS, which is the Middle East Respiratory Syndrome virus. It was back in 2012. It's another coronavirus. And it had very limited spread back in 2012. People in Canada might remember SARS from 2002, 2003. Also another coronavirus. Anyway, this group in Oxford was working on a vaccine for MERS. And because they had that all sort of set up and ready, they were able to kind of go back in and edit the DNA of the different, sort of materials that they had made to sort of change it over to COVID-19, because it's very, very closely related to MERS. And that greatly expedited the process of getting stuff ready to try to bring something to clinical trial. Yeah. So we'll see in the next coming months that, those sort of trials will be done. You'll notice that scientists are always very cautious about things. Like we saw that with what's that malarial drug that Trump has been touting and whatnot. I can't remember off the top of my head right now. But scientists kind of saying, no, let's do some clinical trials, let's do some tests before we just sort of recommend that. And what we're actually seeing is some of those preliminary tests are showing that the outcomes are actually poorer for people that are on that drug, and it might actually be creating more harm than good. So it's always good to be, err on the side of caution. We've got hydroxychloroquine, I think it is, or something.
A bunch of
lots of people are suggesting.
Yeah, there we go. Thank you.
I don't envy people who have to work with drug names.
Oh man.
Yeah.
So Dennis, I've got this is just something that came up in conversation with some kids recently, and so definitely on a different level than some of the questions that are coming in.
Sure.
Hello, sink dishes. We were talking about how when I was a kid, and maybe Brian remembers this as well, when chickenpox parties were popular as a way of getting exposed at a time when, when it's better for a family, or, everyone, the kids are at a good age now, let's expose them to chickenpox so that they get it when, it's going to be not as bad. Is our chicken pox, you know, like, would we ever see something like a COVID-19 party? And why don't we do that anymore? I was like, when it came up in conversation, and I was like, man, I feel so out of my league here.
Yeah, this is not something you want to deliberately expose yourself to at this point in time. Like with chickenpox, that's a well-defined disease. There's a lot of herd immunity to it. And we also have a pretty good idea from lots of experience with that particular virus about how, you know, immunizations, you know, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. I mean, even with chickenpox, you're better off getting a vaccine than you are doing the full-on disease, especially because that can lead to shingles later in life. It's the same virus. You don't want that virus living in you latent for all that time. Just as an aside, we don't have any, somebody asked me this in Bible study last night, we don't have any evidence that COVID at this point has a latency type of thing in that sense, and that it can live in you for a long period of time. Mm-hmm. So yeah, don't do the COVID-19 party. That is not advisable at this point.
Okay, good to know. I remember one time I was hanging out with one of our families from the church, and they were talking about chickenpox parties as if it was like this ancient, like, barbaric thing. And I was like, nah, like, that was like a thing that I was around for. Like, it wasn't that long ago that.
Yeah. You're always better off to get a vaccine than you are to actually have the actual disease. Mm-hmm. What a vaccine gives you is it tricks your immune system into thinking it's actually seeing the pathogen, but it's only seeing parts of the pathogen. It's not seeing the intact replicating organism. Although in some cases, some of our vaccines are actually things that are just really hamstrung, so they can't replicate very well. But by and large, vaccines are just components of the pathogen. It allows your immune system to have an immune reaction to it without actually having the intact entity there replicating. So yeah.
Very amazing that we can do that.
Yeah, but definitely on the chickenpox front, yeah, you do not want the virus, you want the vaccine. Shingles is no fun. Perfect. Not at all. Yeah.
Perfect.
Would you advise against chickenpox parties as well? Is that?
Yeah, that's what he's saying. Yeah.
For that reason, because you don't want the actual virus, you want a vaccine.
I haven't heard of them recently, thankfully.
Yeah.
We went away from that. Well, thank you so much, Dennis. Did we have any more questions, or should we move on to our other ones?
Yeah.
Gwen Thornburn asked, what are the false positive, false negative stats on tests for COVID? That there's a range there, and it depends if you're actually doing a test to see if somebody has COVID. That's one test. The other test is whether or not they have antibodies to COVID. Those are different tests. The ones that are based on like actually testing somebody clinically to see if they actually have a current COVID infection, those rates are in the upper 90s for success, but any test that any scientist is going to apply is going to have either a false positive rate or a false negative rate. That's just the nature of the beast. Things can fail. What I've seen for that is that the false negative or false positive rates are like the tests are quite good. They're quite accurate, but just like anything, they're not absolutely perfect. On the antibody test, it seems like there's more of a range there. There's a whole bunch of different tests out there that different companies have brought out. Some of them have like a success rate. The company will say it's about 90% success rate. Although in practice, in testing, some scientists have actually taken those different tests and actually basically benchmarked them against known samples. And they're finding that their success rate is more like 99.5-ish%. So companies are being cautious, but it seems like we actually do have pretty good tests available. But again, just statistically speaking, there's always going to be a false positive and a false negative rate. So it's part of the toolkit, but it's not like an absolute sort of thing. It's part of what a healthcare provider would be using, but it wouldn't, and it's part of what a public health official will be using, but it's not absolutely fail-proof.
Well, this is super interesting stuff. Yeah, we should move on though and just recap Sunday a little bit.
Yeah, thank you again, Dennis.
Yeah, no worries.
And perhaps You can drop some questions if you had more questions, and Dennis may be able to answer them in the chat, or
yeah, sure.
Or else you can also send us a message at the church, and we can try to put you in touch with Dennis. Not offering all your time.
Maybe another resource that I'll just mention. Some of you know who Francis Collins is. Francis Collins is the director of the National Institutes of Health in the United States. He's also a committed evangelical Christian. And a couple of, like maybe a week and a half ago or so, he did a online podcast interview with the BioLogos Foundation that I worked with before. So, and I mean, who better to get information from than one of the top doctors in the United States? So that I'll see if I can, as we continue the chat, I'll see if I can dig up a link for that, and I'll toss it into the comment stream.
Thank you, Dennis.
Well, let's talk a little bit about Sunday, and just we can talk a bit about our discussion questions that we had. And so on Sunday we spent some time in Jeremiah chapter 29, and basically, what I was trying to do is say we've got this situation right now that we're living through that is that we don't have much experience to draw on, but one of the things that we do have is in the Bible. There's this thing called the exile, and we see in the exile in the Bible, we see people of faith live through a challenge where life is sort of put on hold, where they're taken out of their normal reality, and have to find a new way to go forward. And so look through what Jeremiah had to say to them, and he said, 3 things: God is still for you, find well-being, and serve the city. And so so that led us to 3 discussion questions, which we can just talk about for a little bit here. First of all, do you guys, is that a valid comparison, I guess? Do you think that our situation right now kind of maps onto exile in a way, and that's a helpful kind of construct for thinking about what we're going through right now?
Yes. I think so. I almost wonder, the idea of exile, thinking about it in terms of short term versus long term as well. That's, we're just leaving for a couple weeks versus we're leaving for a couple years or more. I think it's kind of funny. I think when I went into this, I was like, oh yeah, this might be for a few months, but in my mind, it was actually just a couple weeks, and then I wasn't really preparing for it to be longer than that. But
yeah, totally.
I think exile is it's longer. It's not just a break, so.
Right.
So I think that word is actually good.
Yeah, and it's kind of this weird suspension, right? But a long suspension. Okay. So let's talk through our discussion questions. So reflection questions. So the first one was, how am I seeing God's goodness amidst exile? And so Jeremiah, what's really going on in Jeremiah 29:11 is it's.
I had to laugh, Dave. I'm like, Dave is going to preach. I was like, as the scripture reading was going on, I was like, Dave is about to preach on Jeremiah 29:11. It's like, where's the record button? Where's the record button?
It was recorded. We have it documented. Hundreds of people have already seen it. But it was accurate, and we weren't taking it out of context. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where it's a verse that does, that does apply. We just have to kind of do the work of digging in and seeing, okay, is this verse applicable to our current situation? That's all.
Right.
But
yeah, for sure.
So Jeremiah, what he's doing there is reminding the people that God is still good, that God is still for them, that this exile is not the end of the story. So and I believe that's true for us as well right now, that as much as this seems, so unending, that there's an end to this, and that God has more for us than just this kind of quarantine reality or isolated reality. So and if we are watching, we can see God's goodness in the midst of this exile-like thing that we're living through. So how are some of the ways that we're seeing God's goodness amidst exile? And
that's one of the things that I really appreciated from Sunday's sermon, Dave, was just that, like, really, like, walking through that passage and being like, hey, like, it's not like God's, like, got goodness planned for after this period. Like there's, like, like, you kind of, like, buckle down, like, this is your life now. And, for these people, it was like for the next, couple generations. But there's gonna be, there's gonna be goodness amidst this. Like, you're gonna have families. You're gonna, and do those things. And so that was just like, as hearing you preach on that, it was like, okay, yeah, like, God does have goodness planned for in this time. And I have just, and I feel like we talk about this every week, but some of the goodness that I've seen is just like the community that has formed from South Langley Church, and like, just people reaching out, people touching base, even just the, like, little quick messages that get sent. Like, I have been making quick contacts, or sending a quick text message to people way more frequently than I was before. And it's like, now it feels a little bit less like, oh, I'll just wait till I see them on Sunday to let them know that I'm thinking of them. Like, in the moment, I'll just be like, I'll just fire off a quick message. And I'm receiving that as well. And so it's been so encouraging just to see, the community that, like, God's given us through this time.
Yeah. What else, guys? Drop any reflections you have in the chat, or if you're on the screen, you can comment. Brian, Dennis, what do you think? Ways that you're seeing God's goodness in the midst of this.
It's interesting. It puts stresses on people, and that gives opportunity for people to respond either positively or negatively. This will probably sound trite, but you've probably heard the Mr. Rogers quote about, whenever there's something that goes on that's sort of a disaster, you look for the people that are helping, as a way to try to avoid the kind of, either like depression that might come with that. And we're seeing amazing examples of people all over the place who are willing and eager to help. And I personally have found that really encouraging. So,
yeah, I've found the same thing, like here in our townhouse complex, a lot of neighbors that we didn't really know. And it's like people maybe didn't bother to know each other. And, but yeah, there's this coming together effect. Like, for a lot of people, it's drawing out the best in them. And yeah, that's really cool. Brian, how about you?
Yeah, I think I think about neighbors, actually. So it's been interesting. Like, I don't have a ton of relationship with my neighbors, because, like, I live in a basement suite, and the Renaults up, like, the people who live upstairs have a little bit more relationship. But there's, like, it's interesting, like, seeing people's, like, forced community. Like, you're kind of forced to be interacting a little bit more with the people around you, and that's been funny. Like, all up and down the street, I've seen lots of, like, people, like, standing on the ends of driveways talking to each other, or setting up chairs in their own yards, and then talking, like, on their front yards or whatever to each other. And that for a lot of these people, like, I know as is the case on my street, like, just immediately here, like, I think it's a lot of relationship that didn't necessarily exist before, but does now, which is kind of funny. Even, like, the people in the basement suite next door, I've had a couple conversations with the guy next door. He's like a little bit of he's not a great neighbor. Like, he smokes weed and it comes in through my window all the time. But, like, him and I have had, like, some good, just, like, distanced conversations that, like, I don't know, like, he never would have, like, necessarily looked my way before, but we, like, started with just, like, a little bit of a head nod as we've both been, like, going out for walks, and then, like, turned into, like, a little bit of conversation here and there. But I don't know, so there's, I think, little, like, bits of, like, closer community that I've noticed through this. So yeah, I don't know. There's probably more things too, but that was one thing that you kind of sparked. So
yeah, good stuff. Well, hey, let's keep moving. Oh, Heidi says she appreciates this Wednesday virtual coffee time. Thank you, Heidi. And yeah, we're glad to be doing it. Okay, so let's go to the next question. So how can I find well-being amidst exile? So here we are, we're a month in, give or take. So yeah, I think we've all gotten over that initial, disbelief. So how are some ways that you are finding well-being in the midst of this thing that we're living through?
I thought your sermon on Sunday was good to that point, Dave, because it sort of reframed it away from the, oh, this is going to end quickly and we'll just get, like, it got us away from thinking about hold our breath and get through this kind of mindset to asking those questions. Okay, if this is our reality for the next while, how can we be intentional about stuff instead of just sort of holding our breath to get through it? And that changes your perspective. I haven't yet really sort of thought through exactly how that's going to work for me personally, but it was a good reminder to sort of reframe it, right? And that's coming from even from somebody who, like, I kind of know this is going to take a while, right? I know this is going to be a fairly long thing, but it was just good to reframe that. Although at first I was like, oh, is Dave actually saying this is going to last 70 years? Because I really don't know if I can handle 70 years, right?
Oh man, that'd be brutal. Yeah, no, yeah, thanks for that.
And I thought plant gardens was prophetic, right? Because everybody's planting gardens right now, right? So it's like, what do you get out of the sermon on Sunday? God is saying, plant your garden, right?
right.
Yeah.
For me, one of the things how can we find well-being amidst exile is like having like go-to things that, like, if I find myself like in a bit of a funk, that I know will kind of like just at least like change my frame of mind even just a little bit, so that I can like acknowledge the fact that I'm in a funk and need to, get some distance. And so for me, I'm a daily like planner. I have a daily schedule, and I take that as not a rule of life, but like these are the things that I'd like to accomplish for the day. And one of my things that I've added to that list since everything's changed is sing out loud. And for me, like just putting on some good music, that's just a way for me to, like, if I'm feeling like overwhelmed or burdened, like that's a quick fix for me to like kind of take my mind off things. I think it also helps, like, it's, through singing, we're like deep breathing. There's a lot of your different parts of your body involved. And so as soon as I'm kind of like feeling like I'm like stuck in my headspace, or like I'm like, oh, everything sucks, I'll just like, I have my Google device, and I'll be like, okay, like put on this song, and it's the same, often the same music. Right now I'm going to like Dear Evan Hansen, which is a Broadway musical, or Frozen 2. And sometimes it's just like even half of one song, and I come out of it and I'm like, okay, like my physical my like what I was feeling, I am a little bit distant from that now. And now I can like reassess and actually think through like what I'm feeling, like take a different look at it rather than like being stuck in that headspace. So I would say, yeah, like if you could find a guaranteed trick, or like have tools in your toolbox for like when you are feeling exiled, or feeling that like burden, for you to do. I know Kim has also been enjoying music during this time. I think Kim always enjoys music, but
playing the fiddle, you mean?
Well, I know like she often has her, I think she's got her Alexa device, and it's always got music going.
Yeah. Oh yeah, look. They're just saying Kim's saying they love the Easter video. Awesome. Yeah. Brian, sorry, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I've been thinking a little bit about like flattening the curve for myself, so that, like, to use a like popular metaphor or something that we've talked about lots. But I think like right out of the gate, I think so I'm on a course this week, so I would have been in Chicago right now for my program, but obviously that's not happening. But they're, in lieu of that, they're doing just like 1 hour like courses in the morning or whatever class time. And at the first one on Monday, we had to share like a couple of words about like how we're doing, and I kind of, sort of jokingly but kind of true, I like shared the words like peaked early, were my like, and I think like, right, high school was great, just kidding. Like, just in regard to this, like, I think like right out of the gate, in terms of like ministry stuff, and also like just personally, like I think I was doing really, really good, but I think I was also thinking more short term than I realized. So right out of the gate, we came out really strong with a lot of stuff and like pushing really hard, and then like all of a sudden, like a couple weeks later, like settling into that, like, oh, this is actually going on for a lot longer. So in the same way, like the idea with the curve is like to not to overwhelm the medical system. Like I think this idea of thinking more long term and lower capacity is the wrong way of thinking about it, but like allowing ourselves to move at a slower pace. And I talked a little bit about that a couple weeks ago as well. But I've been kind of like trying to figure out what that looks like for me. Something that's been important for me the last few days, especially. I've been praying this prayer that was, I don't know, it was from some prayer book. My friend just had shared it with me, but this is just a prayer I've been praying at the end of the day. So it goes like this: Lord, it's night after a long day. What has been done has been done, and what has not been done has not been done. I entrust all to you. And that's been kind of like, sort of for the last few days, especially, that's been something that I've been kind of trying to lean into and allow myself a little bit more grace than I've been maybe giving myself. So,
I need to like write down that prayer.
Yeah, Brian, can you? It's okay, Sarah. That's gonna be Brian's monthly pastor's report, anyways. So just copy and paste it from there. Perfect. Can you imagine? What has been done is done.
What has been done has been done. What has not been done has not been done.
Here's Christoph with a really great question. Do you have tips for realizing you're in a funk?
Yeah.
Right.
Your wife will tell you.
Yeah, your wife will tell you.
For me, that's been a real like journey. And thankfully now, after years of being in a funk just constantly, I'm now fairly good at recognizing the early warning signs. But I think a big part of that, even for me, like, was just spending time each day reflecting. And you know, sometimes I don't realize that I was in a funk until later. And don't realize that I'm like stuck in that headspace. But once you start identifying those patterns, because I think it really is, you know, like a pattern, then you'll start seeing those other warning signs. And hopefully with practice, yeah, you'll start to, you know, for me, I really do feel it like physically. Like I know my mental headspace is not in the best place when like my chest gets heavy and my arms feel like noodles, and like I have very like physical indications of your thinking your thinking is stuck in a certain pattern. And I think that's, you know, really different for everyone. But I would really just encourage you to reflect and if you, the other thing I would say, and this is the other thing that I've been practicing, is that if you don't yet know when your funks are or how to identify that, just get in the practice of getting yourself out of a funk. You know, that's something that you do with little kids, or I'm told you do with little kids as they're potty training, is like in that period where they don't know if they need to go to the washroom or not, you just take them to the washroom as often as you can. And eventually their body will start to recognize the signs. And so like if you are thinking that maybe this is something that's happening where your head is, you know, stuck in the wrong headspace, is like maybe just get in the practice of finding, finding something that, well, how did you say it? A funk disruptor, like just for me.
That's going to be the name of my band.
A funk, we're the funk disruptors. But that's why I've added it to my daily to-do list. So I try to at least 3 times a day right now. I just sing out loud. And usually, even now, as I'm good at identifying when I'm in that funk, sometimes it won't be until the end of the song, and I have again, mine's physical, so my chest is lighter, I feel lighter, and I'm like, oh, I was actually carrying some stuff with me. That was an opportunity to let it go. Then I take that time to reflect and then just move on. So
we gotta move. It's we're over time already. Let's hit the last question real quick.
Okay.
Yeah.
How can I serve the city amidst exile?
Aha. How can I be a helper?
I mean, and I think one that we often overlook is prayer. We often maybe, we know that we should be praying for the city. But, I personally believe that prayer is a really powerful thing. And so taking the time, I sometimes, during our Sunday morning prayers, Dave, I'll be like, oh yeah, I should be praying for our leaders. And it's a good reminder on Sunday, but we can be praying for our leaders, praying for our city, praying for our neighbors throughout the week.
Right.
Yeah.
I think I totally agree with what you're saying, Sarah. I think I tend to gravitate toward practical, tangible things.
Yeah.
And it's definitely not an either or, it's a both and.
Yeah.
I think it's okay that, there's a range of different sort of giftings in the church, and just asking God, okay, in my situation, how can I, with the gifts you've given me, how do I use those in a way that benefits people around me in some way? And I think prayer and meditation can be really good for allowing God to speak to us and to give us insight into our local situation, to say, okay, here's where you should go, here's what you should do.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. Of course, I mean, that's easy to say, but then, how many days have I just sort of sat on the couch doing work and I'm not really doing that with people around me? So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good word, speaking on how we're gifted, and we could have a talk about, gifts of the Spirit and spiritual gifts and what that means in the Bible. But there's that point in 1 Corinthians 12 where Paul says that each one is given a gift for the common good, right? The Spirit gives gifts according to, and so some of us are particularly gifted in prayer and gifted in some are particularly gifted in practical service in different ways. And so that's a good word, and I think that's a very biblical model, if you want to say that.
I really like what Kim has just said here, Dave, and I think you were just about to get to it. But the simple, just ask yourself, who do I know who that might be struggling right now, and just connect with them, and just reach out, again, a quick text message, Facebook message, or if you have it in you, deliver Pascha in a socially safe way. But what little things, it doesn't have to be a big, grocery shop or, giant delivery or something. Just reaching out and connecting with people.
Yep. Heidi's pointing out right now, my serving is in being there for my clients and being kind to people when I go grocery shopping.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And I was going to say, actually, being a non-anxious presence is for us a big thing right now. I think we can be, the church, can be the people who are not freaking out, because we've got a grounding in faith, that can maybe position us to be people who are steady and who are steadying forces in the midst of a society that's kind of upside down right now.
Right.
Oh, thanks, Kim. I stole it from someone. I stole that phrase from someone.
It's a Brene Brown thing, isn't it? I'm sure she stole it from somebody. It's a.
You know what? I got it from John Mark Comer, and I think he got it from someone else.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's a John Mark Comer thing. You're right. Yeah.
He got it from some book.
No, he got it from that guy from San Francisco, and then he got it from Dallas Willard. So probably Dallas Willard.
We should just trace it back to Dallas. Assume it was Dallas Willard.
That's a researching thing, right? Like the snowball. What's that called, Dennis? The snowball effect or snowball? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure. Sorry.
Research.
I also just really like Heidi's comment here, and I'm gonna kind of summarize a little bit, but Heidi's kind of just saying like, for her, part of her way to serve others is by acknowledging what she can do and what she can't do, and that it may, what she is able to provide for other people is, might change week to week, but for right now, it's like being there for her clients and being kind. And that's what she has the ability to serve others. And so, she's not, she's not burning herself out. She's not doing Brian's peaking too early. She's making sure that she can continue to serve for the longer duration.
I love that.
It's interesting. Like that's making me realize, we had these three points from Jeremiah, and they actually kind of build on each other. Like serving the city actually is built a little bit on finding well-being, and probably finding well-being is actually built a little bit on remembering that God is still there and is for you. So if I were going to rewrite the sermon, I'd maybe talk about that a little bit. But it's a little bit of a system, right? Of like a system of having good impact, positive impact in the midst of exile.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we should probably shut it down pretty quick here.
Yeah, I have to do some homeschooling this afternoon. I'm sure that other people have work to get back to. Brian's got some guitars.
I have some very important,
super
important stuff to do.
I saw a post that came across my Facebook about how it's really hard to get out of like conference calls and different things now, because you can't just say, "Oh, I've got to run. I've got something to do," because like we're all just.
I have another Zoom call I need to hop on. That's
right. You just say you have another Zoom call, or you have your son come in and interrupt you and
let you know that it's time for lunch.
That's right. That's exactly right. Well, listen, everyone, we want to thank you for joining us. We will be, our next online thing is our Sunday morning service. And then we'll be back again next Wednesday at 11 for another one of these. So anything else we need to say as we close here?
Thank you again to Dennis for joining us, for joining the banter. And it was really great to have another voice.
I got a text Dennis saying thank you for your expertise. So
hey,
and awesome. I will just say that we will make sure to post that podcast and other links on our South Langley Facebook page, so that it's easy to find. You don't have to be scrolling through comments. So
and if you think about it, pray for Francis Collins too, because he's obviously under a huge amount of stress right now, and he's trying to give good, wise counsel to the U.S. administration. And so pray for him.
Good stuff. All right.
Awesome.
All right. See ya.
Thanks a lot.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.